It was a chilly autumn afternoon in Willow Creek, a town where life moved at a comfortable pace. The park, nestled in the heart of the town, was alive with the sounds of laughter and rustling leaves. 7-year-old Emma Thompson was a bundle of energy, her blonde pigtails bouncing as she skipped down the pathway with her favorite stuffed bear, Mr. Buttons, clutched tightly in her arms. "Emma, stay where I can see you," her mother called out from a nearby bench, her voice tinged with both caution and warmth. She was reading a book, but kept a watchful eye on her adventurous daughter. Emma giggled in response and twirled around, her little boots kicking up a flurry of golden leaves. As she spun, her eyes landed on a man sitting on a distant bench. His clothes were worn and ill-fitting, his hair matted beneath a frayed beanie. He sat hunched over, staring at the ground, his hands clasped together as if shielding himself from the world. Curiosity sparked in Emma's bright blue eyes. She stopped twirling and turned to her mother. "Mommy, why is that man so sad?" she asked, pointing toward the figure on the bench. Her mother glanced over and hesitated, unsure how to explain the complexities of homelessness to her young child. "He might be going through a hard time, sweetheart," she said gently, trying to keep her answer simple. But Emma was not one to leave a question unanswered. With the unfiltered bravery of a child, she skipped over to the man, her boots crunching on the fallen leaves. "Hi!" she chirped, her voice breaking through the man's fog of despair. The man, startled, looked up. His tired, weathered eyes met Emma's innocent gaze. For a moment he was speechless, unsure how to react to this unexpected visitor. "I'm Emma," she said brightly. "What's your name?" He hesitated before replying, his voice hoarse and low. "Thomas," he said. "Thomas Reed." Emma tilted her head, studying him. "You look sad. Are you sad?" Thomas nodded slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, I guess I am." Emma thought for a moment, then held out her beloved Mr. Buttons. "Here," she said with a wide grin. "Mr. Buttons always makes me feel better when I'm sad. You can borrow him." Thomas stared at the stuffed bear, stunned by her generosity. I can't take that," he said, his voice cracking. "It's yours." Emma pushed the bear closer to him. "It's okay," she insisted. "He's magic. He'll make you happy." Tears welled up in Thomas's eyes as he reached out and took the bear, his hands trembling. "Thank you," he whispered, the words catching in his throat. Emma smiled and skipped back to her mother, leaving Thomas alone on the bench, clutching Mr. Buttons as though it were a lifeline. For the first time in years, he felt a flicker of hope. The sun dipped below the horizon as Thomas Reed made his way back to the small alcove beneath a bridge that he called home. The temperature dropped with the fading light, but Thomas didn't notice. His mind was still fixated on the little girl and her gift, Mr. Buttons. The stuffed bear sat securely in his hands, its soft fabric worn but comforting. Sitting on the cold, hard ground, Thomas stared at the bear, a lump forming in his throat. The innocence and kindness of a child, a stranger, had pierced through the walls of despair he had built around himself. It wasn't just a toy. It was a reminder that someone, somewhere, still saw him as a person, worthy of kindness. As the hours dragged on, Thomas's thoughts turned inward. How had he ended up here? His life had once been stable, a decent job in construction, a modest apartment, and dreams of building a future. But a workplace accident had left him injured and unemployed. Medical bills piled up, and without a safety net, he quickly spiraled into homelessness. For years he had convinced himself there was no way out. Each day was about survival, finding food, seeking shelter, and avoiding the judgmental stares of passers-by. But tonight, with Mr. Buttons in his hands, he felt something different, the faintest glimmer of hope. "This can't be it," he whispered to himself, the sound of his own voice foreign after so much silence. The next morning, fueled by a newfound resolve, Thomas approached the local homeless shelter. It wasn't his first time there, but this time was different. He wasn't just looking for a meal or a place to sleep. He was looking for a way out. A volunteer at the shelter greeted him warmly. "Hi there, I'm Sarah. How can we help you today?" Thomas hesitated, then took a deep breath. "I want to change my life," he said. "I need help getting back on my feet." Sarah smiled encouragingly. "That's what we're here for. Let's start by figuring out a plan." Over the weeks that followed, Thomas began rebuilding his life step by step. The shelter provided him with clean clothes, hot meals, and access to job training programs. He signed up for vocational courses in carpentry and took on odd jobs to earn a bit of money. Each small victory, a finished project, a kind word from a coworker, gave him the strength to keep going. But no matter how difficult the journey became, Thomas kept Mr. Buttons close. He would often glance at the bear and remember the little girl's words. "He's magic. He'll make you happy." And in a way, she was right. The bear became a symbol of the hope and kindness that had reignited his will to fight for a better future. By the end of that year, Thomas had secured a stable job as an apprentice in a woodworking shop. He rented a small room in a shared house, and for the first time in years, he felt a sense of stability. Though his progress was slow and filled with challenges, Thomas never forgot the moment that had sparked it all, a little girl in a park and her extraordinary gift. As the years passed, the memory of the homeless man in the park faded into the background of Emma Thompson's life. She grew up in Willow Creek, surrounded by the love and guidance of her parents, who taught her the importance of compassion and generosity. That lesson, embodied in her encounter with Thomas Reed, stayed with her in ways she didn't yet realize. By the time Emma reached high school, she had blossomed into a thoughtful and ambitious young woman. Her curiosity about the world and her innate desire to help others fueled her dreams. While her classmates talked about becoming doctors, engineers, or entrepreneurs, Emma's aspirations were different. She wanted to make a difference in people's lives, especially those who had been dealt a tough hand. "I think I want to study social work," she told her parents one evening during dinner. "I want to help people who don't have anyone to turn to." Her father smiled proudly. "That's a noble goal, Emma. The world needs more people like you." Her mother nodded in agreement. "It won't be easy, but if anyone can do it, it's you." Encouraged by their support, Emma worked tirelessly to achieve her goal. She excelled academically, balancing her studies with volunteering at local shelters and food banks. Every experience strengthened her resolve. She saw firsthand the struggles of people living on the margins of society and felt a deep sense of responsibility to help. One particularly cold winter, Emma organized a blanket drive for the homeless. As she handed out blankets at a shelter, she noticed an elderly man clutching a tattered stuffed bear. The sight gave her a strange feeling of déjà vu, though she couldn't place why. She brushed it off, focusing instead on the task at hand. After graduating high school, Emma earned a scholarship to a prestigious university where she pursued a degree in social work. The rigorous coursework didn't deter her. It only deepened her understanding of systemic issues and the ways in which small acts of kindness could ripple outward, creating meaningful change. During her final year of college, Emma completed an internship with a nonprofit organization that provided housing and job training for homeless individuals. She was praised for her dedication and innovative ideas, and by the time she graduated, she had several job offers waiting for her. One offer, however, stood out: a position at New Horizons, one of the most respected nonprofit organizations in the country. Known for its groundbreaking initiatives to combat homelessness, the organization aligned perfectly with Emma's passion and vision. "This is it," Emma told herself as she prepared for her first day at New Horizons. "This is where I'm meant to be." Little did she know that her journey would soon come full circle, and a long-forgotten act of kindness would resurface in the most unexpected way. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of New Horizons' sleek, modern office building as Emma Thompson stepped inside, her nerves buzzing with a mix of excitement and anticipation. Her heels clicked softly against the polished floor as a receptionist greeted her with a warm smile. "Welcome to New Horizons, Miss Thompson. The CEO is eager to meet you," the receptionist said, gesturing toward a nearby elevator. "Please take this up to the 12th floor." Emma clutched her portfolio tightly, feeling a mixture of pride and curiosity. She had read about the CEO of New Horizons, Thomas Reed, a man who had risen from obscurity to lead one of the most impactful organizations in the country. She admired his vision and looked forward to working under his leadership, though she knew little about his personal story. As the elevator doors opened with a soft ding, Emma stepped into the CEO's office, a large yet inviting space filled with sunlight and bookshelves lined with awards, framed photographs, and mementos. Behind a sleek desk sat a man in his late 40s, his tailored suit accentuating his confident yet approachable demeanor. He rose to greet her. "Miss Thompson, welcome to New Horizons. I'm Thomas Reed." Emma smiled nervously as she shook his hand, but her gaze was quickly drawn to an object on the bookshelf behind him, a small stuffed bear. Her heart skipped a beat as recognition dawned on her. It was Mr. Buttons, the beloved toy she had given to a homeless man so many years ago. She blinked, her voice trembling. "Mr. Buttons?" Thomas froze for a moment, his eyes following hers to the bear on the shelf. Realization washed over his face, and a warm smile spread across his features. "It is you," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "The little girl in the park." Emma's mind reeled as the memories came flooding back. The autumn leaves, the man on the bench, and her insistence that he take the bear. You're him," she stammered. The man I gave Mr. Buttons to Thomas nodded, his eyes glistening. "You gave me more than a bear, Emma. You gave me hope when I thought I had none left." Emma's chest tightened with emotion as she realized the profound impact of that small act of kindness. "I had no idea," she said softly. "I never thought I'd see you again." Thomas gestured for her to sit, his voice steady but filled with gratitude. "There's so much I want to tell you. But first, let me say this. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you." As Emma sat down, her nerves melted away, replaced by a deep sense of connection and awe. She had unknowingly played a pivotal role in transforming Thomas's life, and now, fate had brought them back together in the most extraordinary way. Emma sat across from Thomas, her heart racing as she tried to process the unexpected reunion. The plush office around her seemed to fade away, leaving only the profound weight of their shared history. Thomas leaned back in his chair, a mix of nostalgia and gratitude softening his expression. "I suppose I should start from the beginning," he said, his voice calm but laced with emotion. "That day in the park, you didn't just give me a toy. You gave me a reason to believe in humanity again." Emma listened intently as Thomas recounted his journey. He spoke of his struggles, how he had lost his job and his home, and how despair had nearly consumed him. He described sitting on that park bench, feeling invisible to the world, until Emma approached him with her radiant smile and unwavering generosity. "Mr. Buttons became a symbol of hope for me," he continued. "I carried him everywhere as I tried to rebuild my life. He reminded me that even in the darkest times, there's kindness out there." Thomas's voice grew steadier as he explained how he had turned his life around. He shared stories of odd jobs, vocational training, and the mentors who had guided him along the way. Eventually, he landed a stable position at a woodworking shop, where he discovered a talent for craftsmanship. Over the years, his hard work and determination led him to establish his own nonprofit organization, New Horizons. "I wanted to give back," Thomas said, his eyes meeting Emma's. "I knew what it felt like to hit rock bottom, and I didn't want others to go through that alone." Emma's eyes welled with tears. "I had no idea how much that moment meant to you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was just a kid." Thomas smiled gently. "Sometimes it's the smallest gestures that leave the biggest impact. You may have been a child, but your heart was wise beyond your years." Emma wiped her eyes, overwhelmed by the gravity of their connection. "I'm so honored to be here," she said, "to work alongside you." Thomas leaned forward, his tone sincere. "Emma, having you here feels like the completion of a circle. You've already proven that your heart is in the right place, and I know you'll do incredible things at New Horizons." For the rest of the meeting, they discussed Emma's role and the initiatives she would be involved in. Yet, the undercurrent of their shared history made the conversation feel deeply personal. As Emma left the office that day, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than a job. It was a calling. Thomas watched her go, a sense of pride and fulfillment washing over him. The little girl who had once saved his life with a simple act of kindness was now poised to help him change countless others. Emma's first few weeks at New Horizons were a whirlwind of activity. The organization was a beacon of hope for so many, and she quickly immersed herself in its mission. Working under Thomas's mentorship, Emma felt a renewed sense of purpose. She wasn't just part of a team, she was part of a movement, one rooted in the same compassion that had brought them together years ago. Thomas made a point to involve Emma in key projects, often sharing his insights and experiences. Together, they worked on expanding programs to provide housing, vocational training, and mental health support for those in need. Emma was inspired not only by Thomas's leadership, but also by the way he treated every person with dignity and respect. One afternoon, during a brainstorming session, Thomas turned to Emma. "I've been thinking about starting a new initiative," he said, "a mentorship program for people transitioning out of homelessness. I want them to have someone who understands their struggles and can guide them, much like I had." Emma's eyes lit up. "That's an incredible idea. We could pair mentors with participants based on their backgrounds or skills, helping them navigate their challenges while building confidence." Thomas nodded. "Exactly. And I'd like you to take the lead on this project." Emma's heart skipped a beat. "Me? Are you sure?" "Absolutely," Thomas said, his voice firm yet encouraging. "You've already shown a deep understanding of what it takes to make a difference. And besides," he added with a smile, "I think Mr. Buttons would approve." They both laughed, the stuffed bear now a cherished symbol of their shared journey. As Emma took on the mentorship program, she poured her heart into its development. She met with individuals who had once been homeless, but had found stability through New Horizons. Their stories were raw and inspiring, filled with resilience and hope. Emma's goal was to create a network of support that could break the cycle of homelessness for good. Meanwhile, Thomas watched her with quiet pride. Seeing Emma thrive reminded him of how far he had come and the extraordinary ripple effect of a single act of kindness. Though he had once thought of himself as alone in the world, Emma's unwavering belief in him all those years ago had proved otherwise. By the time the mentorship program launched, it was met with overwhelming success. Participants spoke of the profound impact their mentors had on their lives, and Emma was hailed as a rising star within the organization. At the program's inauguration ceremony, Thomas stood beside Emma as they addressed a room filled with supporters, participants, and mentors. "This program," Thomas said, his voice resonating with emotion, "is proof that compassion can transform lives. Emma and I are living examples of how kindness, no matter how small, can change the world." Emma smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. The journey that had started with a stuffed bear in a park had come full circle, and she knew this was only the beginning of the impact they could make together. Months turned into years, and Emma's mentorship program at New Horizons became a cornerstone of the organization's work. Lives were changing every day, and the stories of success rippled far beyond the walls of the nonprofit. People who had once lost all hope were now finding jobs, rebuilding relationships, and even becoming mentors themselves. Emma often reflected on how far she and Thomas had come. It was during one of those quiet moments, standing in the hallway near Thomas's office, that she noticed the now familiar stuffed bear on its designated shelf. Mr. Buttons remained a constant reminder of the moment that had unknowingly altered the trajectory of both their lives. One evening, while reviewing reports in her office, Emma received an unexpected visitor. It was Thomas, holding 2 mugs of tea. "Thought you could use a break," he said, placing one mug on her desk. "Thanks," Emma replied with a grateful smile. "I was just looking over the mentorship numbers. Did you know that over 80% of participants have secured stable housing and employment since the program started? Thomas's eyes lit up with pride. That's incredible. And it's all thanks to your hard work. Emma shook her head. It's not just me. It's the mentors, the team, and the people who believed in themselves enough to take that first step. Thomas leaned back in the chair across from her, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. You know, Emma, when I first started New Horizons, I didn't imagine it growing this much. But seeing you here, leading programs like this, I realized the vision was never just mine. It belongs to everyone who believes in creating a better future. Emma felt a surge of gratitude. And it all started because a little girl gave away a stuffed bear. They both laughed, the weight of the moment balanced by the warmth of their shared history. But as their laughter faded, Emma grew serious. Thomas, do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't walked up to you that day in the park? Thomas nodded. I do. And every time I come to the same conclusion. Your kindness saved my life. It reminded me that even in my lowest moment, there was still good in the world. That's why I'm so determined to keep paying it forward. The following week, Emma and Thomas were invited to speak at a national conference on homelessness and community impact. As they shared their story with a captivated audience, the room fell silent, moved by the power of their words. Their message was clear. Even the smallest acts of kindness can create ripples that change the world. At the close of their presentation, Emma looked out at the audience, her voice steady and confident. If you take anything away from our story, let it be this. Never underestimate the power of compassion. You never know whose life you might touch, or how it might come back to touch yours. As the crowd rose to their feet in a standing ovation, Thomas turned to Emma, his eyes glistening. You've done more than I could have ever imagined, Emma, and this is just the beginning. The applause echoed in their ears, a testament to the lives they had already changed, and the countless more they were determined to reach. Years later, the mentorship program at New Horizons had grown into a nationwide initiative, recognized as one of the most effective models for addressing homelessness. Emma, now a prominent leader in the nonprofit sector, often reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. But no matter how much success she achieved, her connection to Thomas and their shared story remained at the heart of her work. One day, during a routine meeting in Thomas's office, he leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. Emma, he began, I've been thinking a lot about the future, both yours and the organization's. Emma raised an eyebrow, sensing the seriousness in his tone. What's on your mind? Thomas smiled faintly. It's time for me to step back. I've been at the helm of New Horizons for decades, and I believe it's ready for new leadership. For your leadership. Emma's heart skipped a beat. Me? Thomas, I'm honored, but... He held up a hand to stop her. You're ready, Emma. More than ready. You've poured your heart and soul into this work, and you've shown time and again that you're capable of leading with compassion, vision, and strength. The board agrees, and I can't think of anyone better to carry this legacy forward. Overwhelmed with emotion, Emma nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. Thank you, Thomas. I'll do everything I can to honor what you've built. Thomas stood, walking over to the bookshelf where Mr. Buttons still sat proudly. He picked up the bear and handed it to Emma. Take him, he said, his voice warm. He's yours, after all, and he'll remind you, just like he reminded me, that small acts of kindness can lead to incredible things. Emma took the bear, holding it close. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. Thomas retired shortly after, but he remained a mentor and friend to Emma, offering guidance whenever she needed it. Under her leadership, New Horizons continued to expand its reach, touching more lives than ever before. One crisp autumn afternoon, years after Thomas's retirement, Emma stood at the dedication ceremony for a new community center. The building, named the Thomas Reed Center for Hope and Renewal, was a testament to his enduring legacy. Emma spoke to the gathered crowd, her voice steady and full of emotion. Thomas taught me, and all of us, that hope can be found even in the darkest moments. He reminded us that kindness, no matter how small, can change the world. This center stands as a beacon of that belief, and I hope it inspires everyone who walks through its doors. As the ribbon was cut, Emma glanced down at Mr. Buttons, now displayed in a protective glass case inside the center. The bear had come to symbolize their shared journey, a reminder of how a single moment of compassion could transform lives. That evening, Emma received a letter from Thomas. His handwriting was a little shaky, but his words carried the same warmth and wisdom she had always known. Dear Emma, you've taken the spark of kindness you gave me so many years ago and turned it into a flame that will never be extinguished. Thank you for believing in me, for carrying the torch forward, and for reminding the world that compassion is the greatest gift we can give. With gratitude and pride, Thomas. As Emma folded the letter and tucked it away, she felt a profound sense of peace. The circle of kindness that had started with a little girl and a homeless man had grown into a legacy that would endure for generations.